Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine, if you will, this huge infrastructure project taking shape in West Africa. We're talking a high-speed railway
Right.
set to connect three capital cities. It's being called a literal new nervous system for the whole region. But here's where it gets, well, really interesting for me. What if I told you this whole massive undertaking is being built without a single cent from, the usual suspects, the World Bank, the IMF, or any former colonial power?
Yeah, that's the core of it. What's really fascinating here isn't just the sheer scale, which is impressive, obviously, but it's the radical departure from the way things have always been done, the traditional development model.
Exactly.
So this deep dive is really all about understanding how Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are taking this incredibly audacious step. They're trying to redefine independence, self-sufficiency, totally on their own terms.
And you sent over some, frankly, really compelling sources for this that really dig into the how and the why behind it all.
Yeah, they offer a specific perspective.
Definitely. So our mission today is to pull out the crucial bits, the nuggets of knowledge and insight for you so you can really get a handle on what feels like a transformative moment.
Absolutely.
So maybe let's start with just what is it? What's actually being built? Because it's not just some, basic commuter line.
No, not at all.
This is a high-speed railway network, and it links the three capitals, Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, Bamako in Mali, and Niamey in Niger.
Right.
And the sources describe it as, well, more than tracks, it's this new nervous system, a high-speed corridor engineered not just for movement, but for power. That phrasing really stuck with me. It feels fundamental.
It is. And what's truly revolutionary here, I think, is that, well, for the first time in modern West African history, really, this railway is designed not to just extract resources for foreign buyers. That's the old pattern.
Right, the classic colonial setup, mineral to port.
Exactly. This time, it's designed specifically to connect and serve internal needs. Africa decides where the tracks lead, basically. And it's not just the railway itself, it's the whole ecosystem around it. We're talking bridges, modern stations, digital signaling systems, these crucial cross-border freight hubs.
Right, the logistics side.
And even a parallel highway running alongside it. So it forms this kind of dual system, moving people, goods, and importantly, allowing for military logistics too. Faster movement across the Alliance of Sahel states territory.
But okay, the truly, let's say, revolutionary part here, the bit that makes this so unique is the funding, how it's being paid for. For something this big, you'd automatically think, okay, World Bank, IMF, maybe France or another former colonial power stepping in.
Usual players.
Yeah, but the sources are really blunt. Zero financing from any of them. In fact, one source actually labels traditional foreign aid as poison. It questions the whole historical impact. That's quite a statement.
It is a strong statement. And it forces you to ask, well, can true sovereignty, real independence, actually exist without financial sovereignty?
Good question.
The thinking behind this clean break, as the sources lay it out, is that for decades, infrastructure financing in Africa, well, it acted less like a helping hand and more like a collar. That's the word used.
Oh, collar. Wow.
Yeah. It functioned as leverage, basically. Leverage for compliance with external demands.
Like what kind of demands?
Oh, anything from adopting specific macroeconomic frameworks dictated from outside to influencing military alliances, pushing for foreign business interests to get priority, demanding privatization of state assets, that kind of thing.
Okay, so strings attached, big strings.
Exactly. So leaders of these nations, they look at this history and essentially decided enough is enough.
That collar analogy is powerful. Did the sources give specific examples? Like, how did that leverage actually work day to day? What did compliance look like on the ground?
Well, yeah, they point to situations where funding for, say, a needed road or hospital came with conditions that forced a country to change its economic policy in ways that might not have benefited its own people, or maybe align its foreign policy or security relationships in a certain way. It wasn't just about the project itself. It was about shaping the whole national direction.
Yeah.
So faced with that, the Alliance of Sahel States, the AES, they just went a completely different route.
Which was?
They created their own regional investment bank. And the key is, it's African-owned, African-governed, and this is crucial African-funded.
Okay, African-funded. So how are they actually managing the financing for something of this sheer scale, especially after rejecting those, traditional deep pockets? It seems almost impossible on the surface.
It does seem daunting. But what's really compelling and kind of the linchpin of this whole strategy is how they plan to capitalize this new bank. It's not just one thing, it's a mix.
Okay.
They're using national resource revenues, think gold, uranium, cotton, the energy sector, channeling some of that wealth directly into this. Then there are diaspora bonds.
Right, getting citizens abroad to invest back home.
Exactly. It taps into patriotism, but also provides return. And then sovereign guarantees pooled between the three member states. So they back each other up.
Oh, interesting.
And this really represents a structural shift, as the source material puts it. Instead of just extracting resources for export and then waiting for aid to maybe trickle back.
Which might have those collars attached.
Precisely. Instead, they're monetizing Africa's own resources to build and retain wealth internally. Now, obviously, critics raise concerns. They talk about the risks of self-funding, especially when these countries face sanctions or have limited reserves compared to, say, the IMF.
Sure, that's a valid concern.
It is. But the counterpoint from the sources is pretty direct. Look at history. Every nation that successfully industrialized eventually took control of its own capital. They argue this is a necessary step, risks and all.
And it's worth noting, you mentioned this new bank isn't like hermetically sealed, right? They're not shutting out all external money.
No, that's a key distinction. They're open to funds from countries like China, Turkey, the UAE, Russia even. These countries have apparently expressed interest.
But under different terms.
Completely different terms. The sources emphasize their welcome only as partners. Partners willing to sit at the table, not above it. That's the crucial phrase. No more dictating terms.
Okay, so that's the finance piece. Huge. But let's shift gears slightly. Beyond the money, this railway is clearly deeply strategic.
Oh, absolutely. Highly strategic.
It seems designed specifically to unlock domestic productivity, to shift away from that old mineral straight to the port pattern we talked about,
right,
and move towards farm to city, factory to region, market to nation, internal connection.
Exactly. Internal integration.
There was this great example in the sources about a tomato farmer in Niger.
Yes.
Used to lose, what, like half his crop sometimes because transport was so slow and unreliable?
Right. Rotting before it could get anywhere useful.
But now with this high-speed line, he can potentially get his tomatoes to markets in Bamako, hundreds of kilometers away, before they spoil. I mean, wow, a tomato that was just waste suddenly becomes actual revenue. That changes everything for that one farmer, multiplied thousands of times over.
It's incredibly direct and tangible. And that impact of speed, we're talking trains potentially doing over 200 kilometers per hour. It's truly transformative. It shrinks the map.
Yeah.
It cuts travel times that used to take days down to mere hours. That fundamentally redefines how people relate to geography, how families might migrate for work, how services get delivered, how you respond to crises.
And security too, right? That came up.
Big time. This isn't just about trade. Think about the route it cuts right through, areas that have been destabilized for years by insurgency, by foreign military presence, by warlords.
Difficult territory.
Right. So this line becomes about establishing sovereign presence. The state is effectively taking back territory, but as the source puts it, not with soldiers, but with speed, steel, and presence. It's almost described as a weapon made of concrete, a tool for stabilization through development.
It's a striking image, a weapon made of concrete. And there's also this really powerful symbolic aspect, isn't there? The actual look and feel of it.
Definitely.
The railway stations themselves, they're not just generic modern boxes. They're being designed to reflect local architecture. Like, Niamey's main station will apparently mirror the design of the House of Royal Courts.
And Ouagadougou's will incorporate traditional mossy motifs.
Right. That sends such a strong signal, doesn't it? It's like a refusal to see modernity and tradition as, enemies. You can have both.
You can have progress that respects identity. And it goes beyond just the aesthetics of the stations. It's baked into the whole project ecosystem. There's a huge emphasis on local procurement, meaning regional factories supplying the steel. African labor laying the tracks, not imported crews. And universities are actually setting up training programs right now for engineers, for signaling technicians, railway planners, the whole gamut.
Building skills locally.
Exactly. So it's not just a train line they're building. The sources describe it as simultaneously a school, a factory, a workplace, a movement. It's about building human capital right alongside the physical infrastructure.
And thinking regionally again, this project seems to directly challenge those old colonial era borders, the ones often drawn arbitrarily on a map in Europe.
Absolutely. Those borders were often designed precisely to divide, isolate, and weaken contiguous populations or economic zones.
Right. But this railway, It runs toward each other. It's explicitly designed to stitch the Sahel together, both economically and politically.
Yeah, the deeper goal here is clearly creating a common economic space. They're talking shared standards, synchronized tariffs across the borders, joint customs policies to make trade smoother.
So it's basically forming a kind of de facto economic union.
Pretty much. And notably, it bypasses what the sources describe, quite critically, as the sluggish, top-heavy bureaucracy of ECOWAS, the existing economic community of West African states.
Interesting. So they're building their own bloc in a way.
It shows the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, thinking beyond just resistance to external pressures. They're actively trying to build resilience from within. And what's also intriguing is how each country seems to bring a core strength to the table.
How so?
Well, the sources suggest Burkina Faso's strength is agriculture, Mali's is more industry and mining, and Niger brings energy and logistics expertise. The idea is they combine these synergistically to create something stronger together than they could be apart.
Makes sense. And this integration, it's not just about cargo and tracks, is it? The sources also mentioned plans for, like, cultural and educational links.
That's right. Plans for joint universities, shared research centers, youth training programs, all potentially integrated along this new rail corridor, so it fosters people-to-people connections too.
So, okay, bringing it down to the ground level again. What are the immediate, tangible benefits people might be seeing or hoping for from this massive undertaking?
Well, the most immediate is jobs. The sources are clear. This project is a job engine. It's already creating employment right now for everyone from high-level engineers down to bricklayers, mechanics, support staff.
And crucially, you mentioned local labor.
Yes, crucially. Unlike many big donor-funded projects in the past that often brought in armies of foreign contractors, this one has an explicit goal: use domestic labor as much as possible. And just as important, build those skill-building pipelines we talked about for future generations of African builders, engineers, technicians. It's an investment in people.
Right. And beyond direct jobs.
You get this chain reaction across sectors, as one source put it. We talked about the farmer getting better prices and less waste, but think about small and medium businesses too.
Like a textile example.
Exactly, the textile manufacturer in Bamako. Suddenly, they might get easier, cheaper access to raw cotton from Burkina Faso and then be able to ship finished clothes to Niamey much faster and at lower cost. It opens up regional supply chains.
Okay.
Even tourism could see a boost. Easier travel makes cultural exchange more likely, fostering maybe a greater sense of shared identity and pride. And this really raises a deeper question, I think. How does visible progress, seeing something this big, actually get built by your own people? How does that combat hopelessness? How does it instill belief?
Yeah, that leads directly to what might be the most profound outcome, the psychological output, as the sources term it. Because for decades, let's be honest, people in the Sahel and much of Africa were often made to feel or internalize narratives of being weak or dependent or incapable of projects like this.
It's a heavy legacy.
It is. And this railway, if it succeeds, is positioned as a fundamental rupture in that narrative. It's telling an entire generation, look, we can build things as good as anyone else builds. And crucially, we can do it on our own terms. That's a massive potential shift in mindset.
It really is. And stepping back even further, looking at the bigger picture, the potential ripple effects. Ghana, Chad, Guinea, apparently, are already in talks about future extensions, connecting their territories into this network.
Wow. Okay. So it could spread.
It suggests that this initial little triangle of defiance, as it's sometimes called, could genuinely become a nucleus of continental connectivity. If this model, self-funded, regionally integrated, focused on internal needs, actually works and proves sustainable.
Big if, but potentially huge.
It offers a powerful, practical prototype, a different way forward for African integration, one that doesn't rely on external engineering or approval. It's based on shared problems, yes, but also shared will and, crucially, shared infrastructure built by and for themselves.
So just to try and wrap this up then, fundamentally, this railway project is so much more than just steel tracks and concrete sleepers. It's being framed as this powerful statement of what? Self-determination, financial sovereignty, and a new model for regional integration for these Sahel states.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the really big picture, it fundamentally challenges a lot of long-held assumptions often held in the West, about how development is supposed to happen, about the role of external aid versus internal will and internal resources. It really asks us all, I think, to consider the profound implications of genuine self-directed progress. What does that actually look like?
Yeah. And maybe for you, our listener, here's a final, maybe provocative thought to just mull over. If this model does work, if this self-funded, regionally integrated development proves successful in the Sahel, what could that mean? What could the implications be for the future of aid, for international partnerships, for the very idea of true autonomy, not just across Africa, but really for any region anywhere that's seeking to chart its own course on its own terms? Something to think about.